Hello and welcome to the very final Random Ramblings on Infinity Train. We're looking at episode 9, which is just called The Engine. Not the engine car, just The Engine. The only one that doesn't have car in the title, which has changed my thumbnail slightly. I've always just replaced the middle word, but there you go. So this is the episode, for those of you who don't remember, although I'm sure you'll remember this one, where Tulip, sort of the climax of the journey, Tulip makes it to the engine. The cat bails out almost immediately. Down into the engine she goes, through another unfinished car with some very striking similarities to the unfinished car we've already seen. She gets in to the car, confronts the conductor. A battle sort of ensues for her to get hold of the gun and the orb so she can change Atticus back, make him a corgi again. Amelia sort of reacts by sending her door away, but she doesn't care. Again, Tulip has made the right choice. We sort of just very, very thinly reaffirming that, like, just in case you're only watching this episode, you've not seen the one before it, or you've not watched the one before it just before it, if that makes sense. Just sort of reaffirms what Tulip has learned here. In the end, One discovers his mother is the engine, and he is in fact the conductor, which is just nuts. We'll come back to all of this, but this is just a quick recap for those who haven't seen it recently. And Tulip, obviously, sort of a battle ensues between her and Amelia / the conductor, or the false conductor as I've been calling her. That leads to basically her getting hold of the gun and an orb, changes back Atticus. With one in place as the conductor, he manages to stop Amelia from... Well, not Amelia, oh god, they've all got funny names, haven't they? Not the conductor, the other one, the steward, from continuing to fight. It all sort of calms down. Tulip reasserts her lesson as she speaks to Amelia, gives her sort of a heartfelt thing, telling her she needs to move on. We realise or discover that Amelia does have, in fact, numbers all over her body, which is even more extreme than what I predicted last week, but is pretty much what I predicted. I predicted she'd have a very long number. I was not mistaken, and I was not disappointed to see. I thought it would max out at 999, but it doesn't. It goes all the way around her body. It's pretty incredible to see. She's got a lot of learning to do. Restores Tulip's door, which Amelia had sent away during the episode. And she gets to go home, which is pretty incredible. Really fun to see the way that works out. And then, of course, the mirror, the reflection of which there is none. Something I categorically ruled out. I was like, they're never going to just send her home without a reflection forever. She'd be studied by scientists. They did that. I have a theory as to why. We'll come back to it. So I've been thinking about this one quite a lot. I got a bit of a gap between watching this one and recording this one. Which I've not normally had. Not that that's helped me put too many thoughts together about it. It's actually been kind of strange, because normally I feel like there's so much to discuss with these episodes, but with this one, all the really big emotional character beats, that all happened kind of last week. No one really has anywhere to go here. This is just now about putting the last pieces of the plot together. The character stuff really happens the episode before. And I think this kind of happened as well in... Over the Garden Wall, where one of the episodes of the last two was kind of about just practically concluding the story. Everyone already learnt what they needed to learn. It's just the way these plots crescendo. So really, the past car and the engine should be viewed together, because then it's an episode that's completely complete, and your unit of, well, here's all your character development and all your plot stuff. Separate, it's a little weirder to review this one, because you're essentially just reviewing the last action beat. It's like reviewing Avengers Endgame in segments, and then complaining that the very last segment is too action-heavy and not enough character stuff. That's not a complaint. That's part of a whole story, and it's part of the ups and downs and natural crescendos and storytelling of this. So it's not a complaint, is what I'm saying. But it makes it kind of difficult to review this episode, because it's all plot and reveals and then conclusion, and not so much on the character front. The only person who kind of learns something in this episode, I guess, is Amelia, who kind of discovers through her conversation... doesn't even discuss... There's no indicator she's really learned this, other than the fact her number does seem to go down. So I guess that is a pretty clear indicator that she's learned something. Basically, when it's all sort of said and done, Tulip basically says you can't... do I have the quote? I was good at writing down the quotes in these first few episodes, and I don't think I've done it since. We have to adapt to the changes in our lives. It's just once again reaffirming that Tulip has not only learned that she's gone from being the trainee to the teacher. She's learned that lesson so thoroughly that she's now teaching it to others. And Amelia needs to learn to move on too. I really think it's pretty clever to add that last little character beat there. It's not like our main character or anything like that, and it's not a complete arc. It's just an acknowledgement that maybe she's going to start improving. So it's not as satisfying as the character stuff we got last week for Tulip, because I still think the most glorious moment of character development in this whole show is Tulip choosing to save Atticus. She made that choice last week. There's hints of that continuing here because that's what she's now doing, but it's not quite the same as seeing that moment where she chose it. So yeah, this episode is just full of plot stuff. So let's break down what we learn. First of all, I think really interesting choice to have the cat sort of bail completely right up top. She says she always does the right thing, which I think is interesting. Right by whose definition? For her, I think right is the thing that's right for her more often than not. I think the reason she's such a great character. Sorry if you can hear me, like I've got a bit of a sniffly nose, so I keep sort of like, let me just, I'm gonna blow it, and then I'm gonna not fidget with it anymore, because that's probably making a lot of noise. I have to remind myself to cut that out later. I blew my nose so hard that my ear popped. Like, that's no good. Right, okay. I can stop fidgeting now. I need a jiggly. We've got to stop myself fidgeting. That's what I need. So she has a really interesting situation. Not interesting. Like, she has a really very clear character and code, and I think it's really clever to say that she always does the right thing, and then she leaves, because again, right thing by what standard, by what metric, by whose perception, and it's her own. To her, she's always doing the correct thing. I think that's really cool and clever, and I like her as a character very much. She's probably one of my favorite characters in the show, not just because she's voiced brilliantly by Kate Mulgrew, but like design wise, she's pretty clever. She's a good combination of sly and cute. She's also one of the more complex characters for a character that's only appeared in a couple episodes. They've done a lot with her, but also she's unusual for a kids show, because she's not learning anything. That's who she is. She is someone who kind of is always going to be keeping one eye open for herself. She's not an outright antagonist as long as your goals and her goals align, but she'll absolutely screw you over at the drop of a hat, and that she's not grown and changed here. She is, she does genuinely, I feel like Tulip, and she will help Tulip as long as it isn't an inconvenience to herself. But that makes her a more complicated and more interesting character than most of the characters in this show, and I think very deliberately choosing to have her not come on this final beat of the adventure is very much them saying, well, other than that, she wouldn't have really had a lot to do in the final, that final battle, because, what role could she have possibly played in that? Gets her out of the way, but it also, I think, sort of establishes a precedent for her being elsewhere in the car. I've already talked about how I'm fairly confident, although I've thought about this actually the other day. I don't actually know 100% for sure that the next series is a new person. I think I had that confirmed. I think I read that somewhere, or read someone talking about it in a way that suggested that. And I think I even said in the first or second episode of this, I'm pretty sure the second season is about a new passenger, but I actually haven't confirmed that. So I really am going into the second season blind. So here, some more blind speculation, where anyone who's presumably seen the trailer for the next series, which I'm not going to watch, I'm just going to go straight into it blind again like I did with this one. Presumably everyone who's seen the second series already knows, but it's going to be quite a surprise to me to see how it plays out. But I think they're setting it up. If there's a new passenger, there's got to be. There's no way Tulip's coming back. Actually, you know what? Scrap everything I just said. It has to be a new passenger, just physically speaking. I won't be happy if they find an excuse to drag Tulip back out of her life for this. I think she got a really good ending here. So let's assume it's a new passenger. I think they've basically said, hey, the cat's off out in the train. She's going to bump into whoever she bumps into, and the new passenger, if and when we get to that, we'll bump into her, and I think that's a pretty good way to do it. while we're on the subject of a potential new passenger, in this episode, there's a moment when Amelia goes through the computers in the engine, and she sees a couple of different people crop up. I think there's like 15 images that come up. It would not surprise me if one of those turned out to be the main character of the next season. I feel like, because it's a kids show, we're probably not going to go with one of the older ones. So there's a couple of younger, teeny people in this that I feel like are likely to be, or possible, characters. I found it interesting that not everyone had a lowish number. There were a couple that were like 13 or 50 or something like that, and then like there was a couple in the hundreds, like 140, 180 or something like that. And there were one or two even with up to like 4,000 as their number, which is like, wow, you've got work to do. But there were like two, I think, with like numbers so long they went off the edge of the box, and they had like ... and then like a series of numbers. Like, so Amelia is certainly not alone in being unable to help herself. There were at least two people in a similar situation I noticed in that before she came to the image of Tulip. So yeah, it's going to be really interesting to see if I'm right in that, if there is a new member of cast next year, a new passenger to focus on. Are they going to be one of the people listed here, which would be a really neat way to tie the two seasons together if we could go back and see that person's face in this first season. That'd be really cool. And the idea they were on the train maybe just at the same time as Tulip. Maybe they just gotten on, a day or two before she left or something like that. You could do it that way. Certainly a lot of different ways you could do it, and it's all pretty cool. I like the idea as well that like there's so many characters we could bring back now. So what I was thinking about, I said I'll come back to this later, the Mirror Tulip thing. So she doesn't show up in this episode, which I predicted she would, and I'm really sad she didn't. I think that would have been really cool, because I still feel like she needs to like have her final moment and choose her name to really sort of complete her arc of I am someone else, I am my own person. But what they do is there's only a couple of shots at the end. When Tulip gets off the train, there are only a handful of shots of her at home with her family, showing that life has sort of moved on to a certain degree, and that she is sort of settled back in. One of the shots, they very deliberately choose to show her walking past a mirror. She does not have her reflection. Now, again, I predicted, well, they'll never do that. They'll never not give her a reflection. That'd be crazy. She'd be a freak of nature. She goes into a place, someone notices she doesn't have a reflection, and all of a sudden it's chaos. They'd be trying to figure out why she doesn't reflect light like other humans. She'd be on a scientist's, she'd be in a lab, in a tube. Be trying to figure her out. I guess not, because they've gone with that. I guess she just has to hide that fact now, which makes a certain amount of sense, I suppose. You do feel like that would be a bit of an awkward thing to sort. I suppose it's a good party trick. Everyone gets drunk and you'd be like, hey guys, look, I can bet you I can not reflect in a mirror. Her college years will be interesting, that's for sure. Does she show up in cameras now? If you film her, will she show up? That's the next question I have. Anyway, I don't think that's an accident at all. I still maintain, even now she hasn't shown up in this season, that's how we could maybe get a version of Tulip back next year, at least for an episode. I think there's a chance Mirror Tulip will show up in the next season, bumping into our new passenger. You have them go into like a car where they bump into Mirror Tulip, and she's like being chased by the mirror police still, and I suppose a silver person, if you've already been on the train for a little while, like silver person wouldn't be too much of a shock to you, because you'd be like, oh, there's weird stuff on this train. You wouldn't even necessarily think of her as being, it wouldn't strike you as particularly odd, Mirror Girl. So I reckon there's going to be maybe an episode next season where the new passenger bumps into Mirror Tulip. Because I just feel like they very deliberately chose to show us that she doesn't have her reflection as a weird reminder right at the end, when they probably didn't have to. Just, you don't even need to show her going past a mirror. I guess the other effect it has is proving it was all real, I suppose. It's a bit like the bell inside Jason Funderburker at the end of Over the Garden Wall, it's this, just so you don't think she had a really long dream. Like, Yeah, you see that. So my other question, I suppose, coming back to the ending of this, is how long was she on the train? And does time pass regularly on the train? Did she come back out and it was like the next day? Or did she come back out and it was like weeks or months later? Because It says 7 months later on the little, the little sort of image text that comes up between her getting off the train and her seeing her at home. And she's going to the camp, the coding camp. Now, presumably, the coding camp was the next year. They don't do camp. Do they do camps every 6 months? Maybe. I guess that's possible. It is Minnesota, after all. Maybe they do things differently there. Yeah, it's a weird one. I thought that was a really strange choice because I was just like, so what are they trying to tell me? So 7 months later, does that mean she was 5 months on the train? Does time pass normally on the train? Or did she come out as they say? And if she did spend 5 months, how did she explain that to her parents? Being missing for 5 months. There are a lot of questions this raises about time. And also, if time doesn't pass at all, if the opposite is true, Amelia had aged on the train, visibly. So if she was to get off, would she go back to being whatever age she was when she got on the train? Yeah, shrug. I don't know. Many questions. A lot of questions in general left over from this, actually. I suppose the other one is about 1-1. Let's talk about 1-1. So, frustratingly, I kind of called 1-1 and then changed my mind. I did suggest early on. I never got my image of them looking out of the train and there being nothing at the front, so I was incorrectly predicted that, which a lot of my predictions were then based on that going forward. But one of the things I hit on was this idea that they get to the front, the conductor wouldn't exist, essentially, and that it would turn out to be 1-1. Also, I also predicted the cat and a few other people, so I like my scattershot approach to guessing caught one or two hits. I suppose you throw enough shit at the wall, some of it will stick. One of the things I did say in an early episode was maybe that 1-1 was the conductor. Turns out that is correct, and the mother 1-1 was looking for in the entire series was in fact the engine, which he gets into and controls things now. Still some questions about 1-1 though in general. 1-1 seems to have had some memory issues, presumably, but not even confirmed, at the hands of being usurped by Amelia. So my question then becomes, wait, so does 1-1 now have his memories back? That is that moment when 1-1 gets in the machine and it all lights up and he looks like an eclipse for a second. Glorious robot conductor eclipse on a space magic dimension train thing, whatever it is. Does he get his memories back in that moment? Or is he still like as baffled? In which case, will the train run as smooth going forward with a very confused 1-1 at the helm? Or has 1-1 always been a bit... Maybe that's just how 1-1's always been. Bits, like, sort of, like, all over the place. I don't know. I genuinely don't know. And I don't know if that's something we'll get answers to, because, again, not to spend too much time talking about the possible next series that I'm going to go into blind for this, like, does 1-1 show up? Certainly not part of the gang again. You can't do that now unless it's a prequel. But if it's a prequel, then you don't get to do the Mirror Tulip episode that I really desperately want. Just as an excuse to bring a version of Tulip back without crapping on this Tulip's ending, if nothing else. Yeah, that's my question now. Is like, how do you fit 1-1 into this show going forward? Well, it's either a prequel, and it tells us it's someone else's journey through the train prior to Tulip arriving, and it ends with Amelia's usurp of 1-1 maybe, as the other person, as the main character of that series, the protagonist sort of chooses to go home. That could be quite dark, I suppose. It could sort of show how 1-1 ended up in that snowy field at the beginning of the series. Good. As long as I just kind of want answers to what's going on with him, memory-wise. Is that just how he is? Is he just scatterbrained like all the time, and that's always how he's been, or is that a result of the usurping? If it is a result of the usurping, does he have his memories back now? So many questions. We'll see if they get to them. That's the good thing, though. I guess it's good that there's so many of the major questions. What do the numbers mean? What's happening on the train? Have all been answered. But the fact there's still more stuff I want to know about, like, makes me go on. I'm glad they're doing another series. Would I have been satisfied with this as the ending? Yeah, I think so. Nothing that's left open isn't so infuriating that I'm like, like, give me more, damn it. Like, if this had been the last episode, I'd have been very happy with this. I think it's a really great show. And this episode is particularly brilliant. In terms of 1-1 being the conductor, it makes perfect sense. Well, I still think he kind of his behavior fit more along the lines of like a mechanic or a repairer. But if he's part of the train and he's like part of, because the engine seems to create the carriages, so I guess I was kind of close. Because I sort of suggested he was like a maintenance robot of sorts that helps build or design the carriages. I sort of said he either goes around and fixes them or he goes around and makes them. So, I mean, that is still technically correct, but he's the conductor. What does that actually mean or entail, that job, other than having all the power of controlling everything? I'm unsure what his day-to-day is, other than being irritating, but in the funnest way. So, yeah, I don't know where we go with that and whether 1-1 shows up again at all. I literally don't know. In terms of this episode, then, what else is left to talk about? Let's see. The steward finally was useful. So there's a really clever moment when they first go into the train car, when to distract Amelia, Tulip, who is the smartest, especially compared to Amelia. We'll talk about Amelia in a second. Oh, boy. And she slides the TV with the tape in it in front of Amelia and distracts her. Well, sucks her into the tape, presumably puts her in that trance that Tulip was supposed to be in. And presumably, based on what the cat said, you'd be in that trance forever. But the steward finally does something useful and steps in and destroys it, freeing her from that trance, which I thought was pretty cool. Because otherwise the steward has proven ineffectual in this show. Well, make sure you kill 1-1. Shoots the ball pit and then just like leave. Yeah, okay, let's talk about Amelia's stupidity. Amelia is repeatedly dumb in the show, and it's really kind of frustrating. So number one, way back in the ball pit car episode, someone pointed out in the comments that basically her plan was, hey, she wanted to destroy 1-1. 1-1 goes off into the ball pit. The cat is another loose end, so she sent the cat in after 1-1, not because she's confused about whether she wants him or wants him destroyed, but it's because she wants him destroyed and she wants the cat destroyed too. So she sent the cat into the ball pit, knowing that she was about to command the steward to collapse it in on both of them. Okay, on board, makes sense, I guess. But wouldn't you stick around to check? I mean, how, movie, TV logic here, guys. When your big thing collapses and there's a chance someone could have survived that, then maybe you don't just leave assuming that it worked. Because in this case, both of them survived, and it was very much her undoing. The cat was able to bring them to the engine. 1-1 was able to just take over and stop the steward, and therefore remove Amelia's last weapon, I guess, once she'd lost her mech suit. So, yeah, come on, Amelia. But then, second of all, so let's just get something straight here. Tulip comes into the engine and is just like, all I want is Atticus. Give me Atticus. Let me get Atticus. And she's just like, why don't you go home? She's like, well, no, not before I get Atticus. So what does Amelia do? Tries to stop her from being able to put Atticus back and sends her portal home away. What? If you want to just carry on making your carriages and trying to get Ulrich back, hey, I have an idea. How about you just give her the dog? What do you care? What does it matter to Amelia whether Atticus is a cockroach monster or a dog? I think Tulip's made it kind of clear that she's just here because of Atticus. Put Atticus right. 10 seconds. Shoot the dog. Hey, look, he's back. And your portal's back there. Bye. If Tulip's such an inconvenience and such a pain in the ass and such a problem for her, just give her what she wants and let her go. Why would you fight that? She basically creates her own problem here. I mean, maybe she's not thinking straight, still grief or whatever, but I don't know. That was kind of that was insane thinking to me, because I was just just let her have it then. Give her the dog. Why do you care? It's not like the Atticus being a cockroach monster was essential to her plan. She just wanted rid of Tulip so she could carry on making these cars and trying to recreate Ulrich. Oh, Doctor Who just creeping into my life a bit more. While we're on the subject of Amelia, let's talk a little bit about her plan. So her plan, it seems, and I feel so dumb about this, her plan, it seems, was to was to create a car, recreate her old life, essentially. Which is one of the cool things about this, is when, you know, they're having that heart-to-heart towards the end, and, you know, Tulip is like, where are we? I've lost my brain. My brain just fell out of my head. What does Tulip say? I've got it in front of me, so on my notes, but we have to adapt to the changes in our lives. That was the problem, was Amelia wasn't doing that. She was trying to bring it back, basically. She was trying to rekindle that old life that's now dead and gone. And I think that's really interesting from Amelia's perspective, that she was just so stuck in that rut that she took over the train. And it also explains so much of what's been happening. I think it's really clever, just because it's always so frustrating in these mystery shows when there's a bunch of weird random shit that happens, and then at the end they reveal what's been going on, and it doesn't quite explain all of it in a satisfying way. But this kind of covers everything, so you can assume that part of the world was she wanted a corgi, because we can see she's put a corgi into the car. So she sent the steward to go get a corgi orb, which is probably what the steward was, or just collect orbs in general, but particularly maybe a corgi orb. So that's why the steward was messing about in Corginia. Thumbs up, makes perfect sense. The unfinished car now makes perfect sense. And even funnier, obviously Ulrich, voiced by Matthew Rhys, voices the talking turtle in the unfinished car. Also very clever. Like, it was almost like, oh, that was one of her attempts to bring Ulrich back. Sort of. It didn't work. Which is why in this episode, when the tree is full of turtles, she's like, what's with the turtles? Which, by the way, is that a nod to Over the Garden Wall, which has turtles everywhere? Don't know, but I'm going to say yes. Like a little, like a, not like they're set in the same universe sort of nod, but like a, hey, we acknowledge this other great show that exists on the network that did something that we did. Which, by the way, something I found out since watching this was that these two shows were in development at the same time. Yeah, Over the Garden Wall was many, many years ago, and this show just, sort of lingered in development in hell for a long time, which is crazy. Long enough for the guy who made it to go off and work on a regular show for a few years and then come back to it. Insane. Anyway, that's a different story. So yeah, I thought it was really cool. And obviously, and what's really frustrating, and I might have already talked about this, I don't know if I have, because I'm rambling, and that's the whole thing of this. Like, the college thing. I'm so annoyed, because I remember when I was watching The Past Car, thinking, oh, there's the imagery of like a big college campus again. I wonder if that's significant. Like, I remember thinking that and then going, I should put more thought into that, and then just moving on and not noting it down, not going any further. And if I'd have really deep dived on that, I would have gone, well, wait a minute, where did I see that previously? The college car. I might have actually been able to, the information was there to put Amelia's plan together, and I really didn't, and I'm kind of frustrated with myself for not pursuing that line of thinking. Like, I took the first step on that journey, which is acknowledging, oh, there's a recurring image. Does that mean anything? And then not even attempting to answer that question, just getting distracted. I could have looked like a real genius if I followed through on that thought pattern, but I did not, and instead did not know until I watched this episode what her plan was. But her plan made a lot of sense, and I really enjoyed that. God, I really am rambling. I hope this isn't bad. Just comment below. Was this any good? Rambling reviews in general? Was it bad? Did you enjoy it? Were you on the journey with me? Was I rambling too much? Too little? How focused was it? Was it bad? I don't know. I'm going to keep asking, was it bad? Just love me. Just like me. That's all I want. I just want people to like me. No, I'm kidding. I'm not that desperate for affirmation. But yeah, no, I hope that this is... What I really want to know is, was this enjoyable for you listeners? Or should I keep going? Well, I'm probably going to keep going with this, but do we keep going with this going forward with other stuff as well? Anyway, really liked all that stuff. I haven't mentioned this, but I really like the line at the beginning of the episode when Thingy refers to the Tulip refers to being at the end of the train, and the cat refers to it as being the beginning of the train, because like it's kind of never finished, which is a neat idea. Thought that was pretty clever. What else? Oh yeah, the gun and the idea. Okay, so now I'm a little bit more confused, because my theory was that all these beings had originally started as those cockroachy monsters that seem to live naturally outside of the train in this dimension. So when Atticus was turned from a Gorgie into that, I was like, oh, that's his original state before he got turned into Atticus. But looking at the way this episode portrays it, maybe there's another view of it where there's a cockroach monster orb that was in the gun, and you can, these things can be changed. These beings can be shaped into whatever the hell you want them to be shaped into. And she chose to be mean, and she turned Atticus into a cockroach monster dog thing instead of a corgi. So I can't tell if the orb that was in the gun when she shot Atticus was an orb that just puts you back to your original state, or an orb that just, it was specifically, that was a cockroach monster orb. Because there's a difference to me between the beings that have been found on these train cars, and the cockroach monsters were seen coming out of the ground completely outside of the train. They seem to organically live in this dimension, not be part of the train's technology. So that's why I thought that, and I kind of still stand by that. That makes more sense to me, because I have asked the question multiple times of where the living beings in this world come from. But it could be either at this point, because of the way this episode frames it. So I don't know. I really still don't know. Let's see. Have I talked about Amelia and the numbers covering her body? Because if I haven't, I called that. I thought that was pretty cool. I really liked the visual. I liked what it represents, and I liked that she's clearly not alone in that sense either. She's not the only person who's reverting in this train. Like, there's other people with like very long numbers. So that's all very cool. I think as well, actually, it's worth noting that this whole plan of hers to just to get Ulrich back is like absolutely like the extreme opposite of what Tulip's situation was. She's gone the extreme opposite way of what Tulip. Instead of learning to accept it, she's gone so far against that she's now trying to bring her whole life back through the car. Again, if I haven't already mentioned. Pretty clever. I've talked for so long at this point now, I forget which points I have and haven't made, which is never a good thing. I've talked about the reflection. I think that's everything. I think I've covered everything. Oh, I really liked all the heartfelt goodbyes between her and 1-1 and Atticus. Thought that was very sweet. Thought it was nice. Give her a nice send-off. I liked, wait, hug first. And also, though my heart is heavy, the weight will remind me of you, which is nice. If I haven't already mentioned it, I liked the visual. I'm just going back through my notes now to make sure I've covered everything. I love that we've discovered that the visual of the person from the first episode that got sucked out of the train wasn't being sucked out and disintegrated, but was actually going home. As horrible as that seemed. My favourite line of the episode remains Atticus's, "I'm very uncomfortable with how much I've missed," which is just a wonderful piece of dialogue. I think there's a chance we'll see Amelia again in a subsequent series, if I haven't already said this as well. I made a note of this. I think that, like, the way they left her character off, I think there's a chance that if there is someone else travelling down this train, they're going to bump into her, and she maybe it'll just be her arm covered in numbers, not a whole body, and you'll get the idea that she's working on herself. Be a nice little progress for her character. Yeah, so where we're at now in terms of this is, I as a show, I think this is just spectacular. I think everything about this worked. It's really hard to review this last episode because it's not narratively. It's really satisfying as an ending. It gives me everything I wanted. The only criticism I really can levy at it is that it is all a little fast. But that's fine. Like it was always going to be, wasn't it? 11 minutes to wrap up everything and clarify stuff. It was all, it was all barreling towards its ending. Nothing so egregious that I was like, huge pacing issues. Nothing like that. It's just a little faster than I would have liked it, but only because I'm enjoying exploring the world and the characters so much. I would have liked to see more of these things. I think it functions from a story perspective. I think that might be it. Oh, well, the very last thing. You keep a pipe in your backpack. It's a donut holder, which is just what a great reference to an early episode of this. So yeah, I think that's everything. I think I've covered everything. Dear oh dear, very long one, but yeah, come back soon. I'm not going to necessarily do it tomorrow because I'm a little burnt out on these and I'm going to have to take some time off. But definitely come back because I will be doing the shorts that they've released since the series aired. I'm going to do one episode just covering all of those because I can't imagine they're that long. I could be wrong, but yeah. And then we will be coming back to do the new series. I'm going to do it blind. I'm not going to watch any trailers. I'm not going to read anything about it. I'm just going to go straight into the new series completely blind. So I'll come back for that. Again, comment below if this is even good. But thank you very much for listening. And I'll speak to you on the next one. No name for that yet, obviously, and no time frame. But yeah, bear with us. And of course, enjoy the new season of Infinity Train, which starts 24 hours-ish, I think, from this podcast releasing. So yeah, thanks very much for listening, and we'll see you on the next one.